Now it is time to go and take a look at the problem using Tableau to do our visualizations. So once again, we're going to go to data source, go to Microsoft Excel. Now, one thing that you're going to go is you're going to come in, you're going to notice that there is a different, so you have example 2.4 crime in the US. There'll also be one that says Tableau. I'll explain why we're going to use that here in a second. So just open that one and bring it in. And so just like before, pull data in, which I've kind of already done. And now I look at this. How is this different? You'll notice that there's no total violent crime, total property crime. Tableau is very quirky on some things. It does not like data to be aggregated for it. It wants to do it all itself. And so if you would have left those in, it would have done some screwy things to Tableau. And so basically all this is this is the exact same Excel sheet as we worked with in Excel, except we deleted those columns. Okay, so the next thing is just the way this is put together. We like stuff like this in Excel. It makes nice clean tables. Here's the year. Here's each different thing with a different category. Tableau does not like that. Tableau likes big, long lists of things. And so what we're going to do is we're actually going to select our columns. I'm going to hold Control. Oops, I'm going to hold Control. I'm going to select all of these without touching any of the radio buttons like I just did. And so then what I am going to do is I am going to, I thought it was right click. Yeah. So I'm going to click on the radio button, drop this down. I'm going to go to Pivot. And so basically what this has done is this is kind of put it in the list form that it would like. So if I go back, once again, if I haven't said in Tableau, you can undo everything and redo everything. It's great like that. So what I've done is I've taken all these where you look at it, 1960, and it's got a different one for each one. Now if you go back and redo the pivot, 1960, 1960, 1960. So it just does each and every one and then gives it the value there. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to double click on that and we're going to rename this crime. Double click on this one and we'll crime rate. Okay. And so let's go to our worksheet. Now if I go and I'm just going to pull crime into the field here, it gives me my list of crimes. Now what we're going to want to do is we are going to eventually want to separate this into violent and property crimes to make our different graphs. So what I want to do is I want to go through, I'm going to click on these ones that are actually violent crimes. I'm going to hold Control, aggravated assault, forcible rape, murder and non-negligent homicide, robbery. And so notice I got my thing pops up again, so I can keep only, exclude, I can the paperclip to group them together, or I can come over here and create a set. So I'm going to create a set, and I'm going to call that set violent for our violent crimes. I'm going to hit OK. And now it shows up over here. So now I have some kind of filter. I have this group of violent. Now if I go back to the data source, it doesn't show up because it's not part of that. It's just a group. So now what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to put together a test for each one of these to figure out if they're violent or non-violent. So now what we want to do is we want to create a field because we want to use this violent group to help separate out whether we've got violent or property crimes. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up here to Analysts, and we are going to create our own calculated field. Now this is a lot like using Excel with their functions, and we're going to basically create an if function. So we're going to, first of all, we're going to call this calculated field violent or property. And so now we're going to come in here and we're going to type in our code. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create basically an if function like we would do in Excel. In Tableau, there's two different versions. There's IF and IIF. The IIF works more like the one in Excel, so that's what I'm going to use. So IIF. And notice it comes up with the same kind of help that Excel would. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to run our test. Notice it's telling me right now that we have errors. Well, that's fine because I haven't typed anything in. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the test. So we're going to go once again IIF. And so the test, what to do if the test is there, what to do if not. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to test for violence. Set the group. So I started typing it in, I just clicked on it, and that put the bars in it, so we've got there. So I'm going to test for violence. If it comes up, the property is violent, I'm going to have it return violent, and I have the quotation marks because it's a word. So I do the test. If the property is violent, then I'm going to spit out violent. If it is not, so else, that's going to be property. And then I will close the function. The calculation's valid, which makes me happy. I will hit OK, and now we've got violent or property that comes up here. Interesting. Go back to data source. It has now added another column in of violent or property. That's listed as a calculation. The stuff is pivot because it pivoted off the original stuff. And so now I have a way of distinguishing between violent and property crimes within Tableau. So now that we've got this distinguishing feature that we can tag everything as either a violent or property crime, there's one more thing we have to do to clean up the data. So if I go back to the data source and I look at my year, it's all listed as data. The problem is if I click up here on the number sign, it's showing me as the data is a whole number, which is fine. 1960, we can use that. But if we want to make a time series graph in Tableau, it needs to recognize that this data is a date. And so right now, these are just numbers. It will not let us do a time series graph. So I'm just going to change this to date. Okay. Now it has 1960, so it goes, okay, I know this is a year, and it's tagged everything to January 1st, which is fine. We really don't need the actual day and date, but we do need the year. But now it is year. It is a data that we can use. And also notice that when we change it, the hash symbol, the number, the pound sign, the hashtag, also the number symbol is a number. I change that to date. It's now a calendar date. So now I know that I can look at it and I've got a date. So now let's go back to our data and actually start to build our graph. So now we have our data ready. Let's make our histogram. And so what I want to do is I'll get rid of this. We'll pull that out. We have a blank frame. And so what I'm going to pick is, let's pick my crime rate. I'm going to hold control because I am going to pick multiple properties here. Let's pick year and then violent or property. So the first graph we did in Excel was the crime rate per year, violent and property. I've selected these three, go show me, and look at all these pretty charts it'll do, and we'll just say do a line chart, and there we go. And just like that, we have exactly what Excel would have had for us, mostly. Year over year, it's kind of weird, so we'll just go to edit axis, we'll just change that to, we'll get rid of the year of year, just leave it as year, and we can come over here and crime rate, I believe that we called this per 100,000, and so we just make those changes, and there's the first graph. Right now, if we look over here, it's distinguishing between violent and property based on color. And so if we wanted to, we could move this around. We could go based on size. So this one's thicker than that one. That's not really all that useful. Color is much more useful. But let's take this, let's drag this up into rows. And see now what that's done is this is splitted into two different charts stacked on top of each other because they're different rows, showing us the data between violent or property crime here, violent crime here, but this is equivalent to that second one that we did. It is no longer different colors, though. They moved to the same. So let's step back. So I'm going to do the same thing with one change. Because I just grabbed the pill and moved it up, In Tableau, what's kind of cool is if you hold Control when you grab a pill, what it does is it kind of copies the pill instead of just moves it. So I've kept my color distinguish. The way that I'm losing my command of the English language today. I am sorry, but I had that distinguished by its color, and now I still do. Just Control, drag up, and now I have the same chart as I would here with the same colors. And so that's pretty useful if you're using similar charts through to be able to keep the colors going. So one last thing to bring up here, you'll see that the axes are the exact same, which is good for the most part because you want to be able to look at things at similar graphs. If you ever wanted to, for some reason, you could right-click on it, edit axis. You could say, give me an independent axis, and it will reform it so it fills up like it does the other one. You have to be careful doing stuff like this because you can misrepresent data. Because if I look at that, when we look at it, it's like, wow, it's just the same. It's not really because this is on a different axis. But there are times when you would want different views. And so let's just walk it back. And truthfully, this is probably the best view to see the two of them together. But that's just other ways to display the data. Okay, this video has gotten a little long. We're going to pause this one here and we're going to finish it up in the next one.